Christmas night. A family of 3 is laughing in their backyard. They have no idea that in the next 60 seconds, one of them will die, and the father, kneeling in the blood, is about to spend an entire year turning himself into a weapon. But here is the cruelest twist. By the time he is ready to strike back, he won't be able to speak a single word. Not one. Because the same men who killed his son are about to steal his voice too. This is one of the most brutal and heartbreaking revenge stories ever put on screen, and the ending genuinely gave me chills. So let me walk you through it. The movie opens on Brian Godlock, and it drops us in at his lowest point. He walks into a police station, looking like exactly what everyone thinks he is. A grieving father. A victim. Nothing dangerous. He is only there to ask Detective Dennis one question. Has there been any progress on his son's case? Then Dennis steps out and leaves him alone in the office. Bad move, because Brian's eyes drift to the wall, and this one moment flips the whole film. The wall is covered in photographs. Dozens of gang members. And Brian knows some of these faces, because these are the men tied to the night his son died. So what does he do? Calm as ice, he pulls out his phone and photographs the entire wall. And just as he finishes, one image freezes him. A police sketch of a bald man, staring right back at him. That face will matter more than any other in this movie. But hold that thought, because before I tell you who he is, you need to see what he did to Brian. For now, just one detail. The police know him by a single name, Playa. Dennis walks back in and catches Brian slipping toward the door. Their eyes meet for half a second, and the detective sees something cold burning behind that stare. Neither man says a word. Brian just walks out. Back home, he pins every stolen photo across his own wall, mapping out the whole operation like a general planning a war. And he makes the decision that drives this entire story. He is going to wipe out every last one of them. Not slowly, all of them, in a single night. And he picks the date with cold, deliberate cruelty. Christmas, the exact 1-year anniversary of the day his boy was murdered. Which raises the obvious question. How does one ordinary broken man take down 2 entire gangs and survive? Well, the movie earns its answer. We watch Brian rebuild himself from nothing, and burn this into your memory, because it makes the payoff so sweet. At the start, he is hopeless. He can barely crawl through the most basic workout. Trembling, wheezing, collapsing, but the man waiting for us at the end of this training arc is someone you won't even recognize. He buys an old, beat-up car with cash, so there is no trail, and he rebuilds it night after night. His wife knows exactly what it is for, and she grieves in the complete opposite way that he does. Saya is a painter, pouring her pain onto the canvas to heal, while Brian pours his into a gun. Then one night, it all breaks open between them. They hold each other in the dark. No words, because what words even exist for burying your own child? And they both accept the unbearable truth. She has to leave, not because the love is gone, but because staying beside a man walking into a suicide mission would destroy them both. So at dawn, she packs her bags and walks out without a single glance back. It shatters him, and it also frees him from the last thing holding him back. Now, about that bald man in the sketch. The movie rewinds, and we finally see how this nightmare began. Rewind 1 year. It is Christmas Day, and it starts perfectly. A happy family of 3 in their backyard. Laughter and warmth. Then the night explodes. No warning at all. Gunfire cracking through the air. Tires screaming on wet asphalt. 2 rival gangs have opened fire on each other a few streets over, and their stray bullets go tearing through the neighborhood, blind to whoever is in the way. On pure instinct, Brian and Saya throw their bodies over their son, Taylor. And when the shooting stops and the cars vanish, they look down, and the world stops. Blood is soaking through their little boy's shirt. He is gone. Just like that. A whole family, erased by a bullet that was never meant for any of them. Brian doesn't hesitate. He runs, blind with fury, straight at the gangs. He chases a green car into a narrow alley, grabs a crowbar, and slams it into the vehicle. But the car turns around and comes right back for him. Now he is the one cornered. A man steps out with a gun, and there he is. The bald man, Playa, the leader. He fires point blank into Brian's side. Brian drops. And this is the cruelty that forges a killer. Playa calmly lifts the gun again and puts a second round straight into Brian's throat. Then he walks back to his car and drives off, leaving Brian to bleed out in the dirt. But Brian doesn't die, and that single mistake is going to cost Playa everything. At the hospital, something strange begins. A parrot lands on the ledge outside Brian's window, and it comes back, every single day, watching over him for hours. Almost as if his son's spirit slipped back into the world in another form, begging his dad to wake up, and slowly, Brian fights his way back through a brutal recovery. But survival comes at a price, and it is the cruelest twist in the whole movie. That bullet destroyed his vocal cords for good. He will never speak again. Just picture it, wanting to scream with everything inside you, and nothing comes out. Coming home only makes it worse. The soccer ball in the yard has gone flat. Everything sits frozen exactly as it was on that Christmas morning. And under the tree, the presents Taylor never got to open are still waiting. Brian grabs a bottle and drinks. Saya watches from the doorway in silence, until her own grief finally pours out, because no mother on earth can lose a child and stay strong forever. For weeks, he locks himself in the garage, drowning in alcohol. You keep waiting for the hero to snap out of it. He doesn't. Not for a long, painful stretch. Then one drunken night, he thinks about Taylor, and something inside him locks back into place. He can't live like this. And right there, the seed of revenge finally breaks through. It is October now, 2 months until Christmas, and the clock is ticking. Understand the scale of what he is facing. His enemy is not a handful of thugs. It is the entire membership of both gangs who lit up that street. Dozens of armed men. And he plans to hit all of them in one night, alone, without a voice to call for help. So he goes to work. And this is where you watch a father turn into something else. Every night, in the dead hours, he is out in the dark, tracking their movements, filming their crimes, learning their faces. A man who used to fix wiring for a living is now studying killers like a predator. Playa stays a ghost, always slipping out of sight, so Brian switches to an easier target, a gang member named Anthony, and he adds him to the wall that has taken over his home. That wall used to hold family photos. Now it holds a kill list. Thanksgiving passes, and now, watch the transformation. That broken man from the hospital bed is gone. He has mastered high-speed drifting that takes professional drivers years to learn, and his aim is now surgical, dead center, every single round. The reckoning is ready. Real quick, before the carnage, I want to hear from you on this one. The system failed Brian. The police did nothing. He knows exactly who murdered his son. So if that were you, would you pick up the gun and finish it yourself? Or would you find a way to let it go? There is no easy answer, and I am honestly curious where you land. Drop it in the comments. And keep it in mind, because the Brian you are about to watch is nothing like the man he used to be. So how does the storm begin? Late one night, he climbs through a window into Anthony's house, drops him, drags him down to the basement, and hangs him upside down. He puts on a welding mask so his face stays hidden. And here is what makes this scene so unsettling. Brian can't speak, so there is no shouting, no threats, just a silent man in a mask, sliding printed questions across the room, one at a time. Gang operations, money laundering, names, locations. Anthony writes the answers, slowly realizing that this man has been watching them for months. He tries to stall, so Brian calmly drives a knife into the wood, inches from his face. No words needed. Then Anthony pretends to give in, and in one sudden move, he tears free, grabs the knife, and drives it into Brian. This is the movie, reminding you of something important. For all his training, Brian has never been in a real fight, and it nearly ends him. But through pure desperation, he fights back and beats Anthony down. Barely. It is a preview of just how badly tonight could go. December 24th arrives. Brian lays out every weapon with total care. Then he makes a choice. He will not see Saya before he leaves. Instead, he picks up that one unopened gift, the one meant for Taylor, drives to the cemetery, and gently sets the present down at the grave. Then he stays there, for a long time, every word he is dying to say, trapped forever behind his silence. And with that, the plan begins, because what he does next is brilliant. As night falls, Brian dumps Anthony's tied-up body on Dennis's doorstep, with a red envelope beside it. Anthony is arrested within minutes. Dennis opens the envelope, and a note falls out with one chilling line. Everything ends tonight. Then he plugs in a USB drive, and what loads onto the screen stops him cold. It is everything. Every crime Playa's gang ever committed, every location, plus Anthony's full confession, months of surveillance, all in one file. Brian built it for one reason: to make sure that whatever he does not finish tonight, the police will. He heads toward Playa's hideout until a police call crackles over his radio. Armed robbery in progress. Instead of driving past, he turns toward it. He waits, takes a flanking angle, then floors it and drives his car straight into both robbers. One of them grabs onto the roof and won't let go, and it takes several gunshots before blood finally runs down the windshield. Then Brian sits in the silence, and the weight of it shows on his face. This is the first life he has ever taken. There is no triumph in it, just a hollow kind of resolve. Then he grabs a package from the back seat and throws it over the fence into Playa's compound. What is inside? Anthony's severed hand. Yes, the mild-mannered electrician from the start of this film is now cutting people apart to send messages, and there is cold logic behind it. Anthony was the keyholder of Playa's gang, so that hand is a statement. One of Playa's men rushes it straight to the boss. Playa goes stiff with rage, and he jumps to exactly the wrong conclusion, convinced that the rival crew, led by a man named Ruiz, did it. He orders instant payback, which was Brian's plan all along. He never intended to fight both gangs head-on. He lit a single match and turned two armies of killers against each other. Within minutes, both sides erupt into a full-blown war in the streets. Dozens of the exact men on Brian's wall, wiping each other out, while he barely lifts a finger. Brian is about to dive into the chaos when he spots something he did not plan for. Police officers pinned down, one female officer stranded with nowhere to run, and he makes a choice that shows who he still is, underneath the rage. He spins his car in tight circles around her, dropping gang members one by one from behind the wheel. Now the whole night turns on one reckless move. A gang member pulls out his phone and starts live-streaming the carnage, and Playa is watching. He sees his men fall on that tiny screen. He sees this masked driver cut through the bloodshed like a ghost. And for the first time all night, Playa feels real, genuine fear. Brian pulls up and the officer climbs in. But before he can move, a bullet hits her in the back. He drives like a madman to get her to safety, and she does not make it. He closes his eyes for 1 second. Then he hunts down the man who filmed everything, rams into him, grabs the phone while it is still recording, stares straight into the lens, and sends the footage right to Playa. The panic sets in. Playa puts a $5,000 bounty in the gang chat for anyone who kills Brian tonight. Brian spots Ruiz and drives past him slowly, a deliberate taunt. Then he pulls onto a bridge and stops, and picks up a small music accessory, holding it gently. This is the only way left for him to reach his son tonight. He presses it softly to his lips, like a promise. Then Ruiz's car bursts out of a side street and smashes into him at full force, and a brutal, high-speed chase tears across the city. Meanwhile, Dennis is glued to the radio as the reports pour in. Two gangs slaughtering each other, one lone vehicle cutting through the middle of it. And then it clicks. He finally understands what is happening tonight and who is behind it, which sets up the real question of the finale. When Dennis catches Brian, will he arrest him or help him? Rattled, Playa orders his entire crew back to the compound. Word reaches Brian. Every surviving member, gathering in one place. It is either a death trap or the opportunity of a lifetime. He checks his weapons one final time and drives straight into it. Gang members flood into the hideout, and Brian slips in among them, walking through the front like he belongs there. As the rolling shutter drops shut, he ducks through at the last second. The first floor is chaos, and he clears it carefully before finding the stairs to the roof. But before he climbs, he plants mines along the entry points. Remember that, because it pays off in a big way. On the roof, he tracks by sound. Then Ruiz steps out, still alive, still furious. And here is the problem. Ruiz is bigger, and the fight turns ugly fast. He overpowers Brian, pins him down, and starts to take control. This looks like the end. And then, those mines go off. The explosion rips the roof entrance open and throws men into the air. Ruiz turns toward the blast on instinct, and that split second is all Brian needs. He counters with everything he has. That is when Dennis reaches the rooftop, and the two men finally stand face to face. Brian keeps his gun raised. This is the moment the whole film has been building toward. Dennis just looks at him, and he does not see a criminal. He sees a father. He sees the crushing weight of a full year of grief and pain, and he lowers his weapon completely. Then gunfire erupts from behind a door and hits both men. They split up to flank the position, and Brian steps out of the shadows and finds a woman standing there. She turns around slowly, her face covered in tears. Brian hesitates. His gun drops slightly, and that flicker of mercy almost kills him, because she fires. Dennis takes 2 rounds. Brian raises his weapon and pulls the trigger. Then he pushes through to the final door. Playa's room. Playa is already waiting. Brian is torn up, barely standing, running on nothing but fumes, and Playa opens fire, emptying his guns straight into him. Brian is wearing a vest, but the punishment is overwhelming, round after round slamming him back. This is it, a full year of preparation, about to end right here on the floor of Playa's Christmas-decorated hideout. Playa has him dead to rights. Then a single shot cracks across the room. Dennis. He hits Playa in the shoulder. It is not a kill, because Dennis was never a great shot, but it is just enough to stagger him, and that sliver of a second is everything. Brian closes the distance and does the one thing that fits a man robbed of his voice. He does not shoot Playa. He gets his hands around him and chokes the life out of him. Up close, in total silence, staring into the eyes of the man who took everything from him. Playa stops moving. It is finally over. And here is the moment that lifts this from an action movie into something that stays with you. As Brian stands there, wounded and bleeding, he catches his son's reflection in one of the hanging Christmas lights. And for a few precious seconds, he sees the whole life Taylor never got to live. The boy tearing open that Christmas present. Growing up, walking across a stage at his graduation. Every memory Brian will never get to make, flickering by inside a single light. The revenge is complete, and it fills none of the emptiness that started it. So does Brian survive. The film leaves it heartbreakingly open, but every sign points one way. Playa emptied nearly everything into him, and the truth is, the Brian in that room had already given up his will to live in a world without his son. It is strongly implied that he does not make it, and that Saya will one day lay him to rest right beside Taylor, so father and son can finally be together again. Dennis, wounded but alive, pulls through, and with all the intel Brian handed him, he will spend his days tearing down the gangs poisoning this town, so that no other father ever has to bury a son the way Brian did. That is the note the movie ends on. The silence Brian has carried since the night they stole his voice, ringing louder than any gunshot in the entire film. That is the whole story. A father who lost his child, his voice, and his marriage. A man who forged a full year of grief into a weapon, only to learn the hardest lesson of all. Revenge cannot bring back what was taken. It is raw, it is savage, and it stays with you long after the screen goes black. Now let's be honest for a second. If you rode this all the way to the end, and Brian's silent journey hit you somewhere deep, then please do not just quietly scroll away like it meant nothing. That would be cold. Do the one thing that costs you nothing, and tap subscribe. Because if you are watching my recaps for free and still have not subscribed, you are leaving me stranded in that alley, just like Brian. And come on, I thought we were closer than that. And I really want to hear from you. Which moment wrecked you the most? The parrot at the window, the unopened gift on the grave, or that final, hollow silence? Drop it in the comments, and tell me which movie I should break down next, because I read every single one. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.